Hey everybody, Christina here from Creations with Christina, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be making a card using Newton's Nook's Beautiful Wings stamp set and my Zig Clear Clean Color Real Brush Markers. That is really hard to say. I am die cutting with the largest die from the Simon Says Stamps rectangle stitched rectangle die set onto some Strathmore watercolor paper. I actually had some difficulties die cutting this watercolor paper. I think it might be time for a new big shot, because even after I die cut this, I went ahead and tried it a couple of other times and I just couldn't get a clean cut, so I ended up having to take it to my Vagabond. I set my stamps up on my Mini Misty so that I make sure I'm centering them on the center of my watercolor paper. Before I start doing my embossing, I used my embossing buddy to take away any static that might be on the watercolor paper, and then stamped my images using Versamark ink. Once that was all done, I went ahead and sprinkled on some embossing powder. I am using Ranger's Liquid Platinum. I believe it's Ranger's. I'll have to double check that, but I'll link it below. Ranger's Liquid Platinum embossing powder is one of my favorite embossing powders. And then I heat set that with my heat gun. And once that was all melted, I was ready to go ahead and start doing my watercoloring. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with my coloring. This is really my first time using these markers in a project, so I was thrilled in how it came out, and I really liked experimenting with the colors. I started off with some pale yellow, which is called flesh color, and I just went ahead and picked some areas of my butterfly and colored that in. And then I went ahead after I colored that in and used a pale pink, and for that I just went right to the paper. I didn't use any watercolors or water or watercolor pen to blend these out. I just like how they blend themselves. You can definitely blend the colors together just by brushing it right onto your cardstock. So once I have the pale pink layer down, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of additional pink to where I had the flesh color. So I'm just kind of hitting the tips of those parts of the butterfly's wing that they're colored in the yellow color, and then I'm going to go ahead and blend that out using the flesh color marker, and that kind of created a little bit of an orange blend between the pink and the yellow. So once I went ahead and added my second layer of the yellow, I wanted to go back and add a little bit more detail and darken up the pink by just going around the little swirl parts of the butterfly's wing and created a nice little darker section in those areas. I wanted to create a little shadow going around my butterfly so it had some dimension. So I'm taking the pale gray ink and just outlining my butterfly. And this is what also is wonderful about these markers, is that you can go ahead and use these as a watercolor too. So after I had this all outlined, I took my Tim Holtz watercolor pen and blended out the gray color. I had way too much water flowing. At the very beginning I was doing great, and then all of a sudden I kind of pushed the barrel a little harder than I realized, and I had way too much water. So I just kept trying to wipe it off in my hand instead of going in to get a paper towel. Next time I'll remember to make sure I have paper towels at my desk when I'm watercoloring with a watercolor pen. But I went ahead and just kept going until I got it right. So once I had that all blended out, I did quickly heat set it with my heat gun just to dry it. And then I went ahead and kind of blended out those real harsh areas of the watercolor so that it softened out and there was no real harsh outline of the watercolor. I'm going to make my card base. I'm using some 110-pound Neenah Solar White cardstock. I cut this at 4.5 from an 8.5 by, or 4.25 from an 8.5 by 11 inch cardstock, and then folded it at 5.5 to create a top fold card. I'm going to go ahead and adhere my watercolor piece down. I added plenty of my 3M foam, which I absolutely love this tape. And then you can also use, I think it's Fun Foam is what it's called. That if you wanted to use that, you can use that as well. But my paper didn't warp too much, so I was fine with just using the 3M foam. I adhered that right to the front of my card base. And then I'm going to add a little texture. I have some sewing thread. It's a cross between a gold and a silver. I don't know how to explain it. It's not the platinum color that I have for the embossing powder, but it's pretty close. So I'm just creating a fake bow. I just wrapped it around my fingers and created what looked like a bow, like I actually tied a bow in the background of the enamel dot and then stuck that to the back of the enamel dot. And then I went ahead and adhered that down with my multi-matte medium adhesive. So once I had that on, I added 2 more little dots of the enamels down at the bottom in the different sizes, and that finishes off my card. So it's a real simple card for today and a great little way to play with my clean color markers. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. As always, a list of supplies are down below in the YouTube description and over my blog if you want to check them out. I'll have some still photos also on my blog if you want to see more detail of the card. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to give today's video a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new to my channel. See you next time.